Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Matt Willson SFL Kickoff Show. I'm Mike Daggs. He's Gerald Smith. We've got Cameron Irvine and Ron Haynes behind the scenes on production. Welcome to Week 12 of Season 24 here in the Simulation Football League. Gerald, once again, we're here, and it's not Friday night. This is just getting kind of weird.
Yeah, like I said, for the second week in a row, I cried myself to sleep last night, and here we are. It was 2 nights last week.
Yeah.
It's only one time.
Only one night.
Maybe
we're here.
Maybe Cam will throw us a bone and we get back on track.
Yeah.
So my crying days are over.
Well, you do get sad and lonely, but we're here, and Week 12 is finally here. So listen, good things come to those who wait. I think I used that line last week too. Sometimes I get repetitive. I don't care. Let's talk about what happened last week. There was a good amount of games that you picked correctly on all of them.
It was, yeah.
I'm not going to even wait.
Nope.
You picked correctly on all.
Perfect.
I'll give you your much respect.
Look, you talking about grinding somebody's bones up.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, we got to make it happen. We don't want none of that swamp justice.
You start making threats and people listen, like HR.
I wish my team did that.
Yeah.
Won games whenever I got mad and
apparently we
them.
don't have an HR department though, because they just, you are, you're just doing your thing still.
Well, I don't work for the teams. I work for Cameron. So,
and we can actually interact with the chat again. So, Jimmy Hatzis, Mello, FF2, T to Queen, Michael Goodman, Grant Hardaway, and I think Robert Thump earlier too. So a good amount of people with us tonight. Appreciate y'all being here. Let's talk about some of these games last week that we had. There were some really close ones. There were some that were complete blowouts. We had Arizona, obviously over Oklahoma City. Good bounce back game for them to get back to 500. It was good to see them, getting back there. Interested to see how the rest of the season goes.
And it was a perfect team to do it on, right? If you had to do some stuff right and get yourself back on track, it's on a team that's winless, right? Not the only team that's winless, but it's, look, and maybe they found their stride now. I don't know.
Yeah, and the Washington Trident falling to 7-1. Fort Worth Toros
called
it. Win. You called all of them. We already covered that part. You know what? I'm moving on from scores because this is all you're going to do the whole time. Let's look at the updated look at the playoff picture, shall we? Let's get that up on the screen. We've got Baltimore hitting up the number 1 spot now at 7-2. Albuquerque also at 7-2, and Vancouver along with Washington at 7-2 apiece. So there's your 1, 2, 3, and 4 at 6-2. Mexico City at number 5. And then obviously you see Denver, Houston, Bossier City, Carolina. We got Queen City in the playoff picture. I love seeing that. Fort Worth now climbing up into the playoff picture, and Sin City rounding out number 12. The key takeaway I've got, and we've already talked about it off air, 5 of those 12 teams all from the South Division.
Yeah, look, and it's amazing to see. Look, that's why they booted me out, because I just couldn't compete. And then they had a stud of a team in Albuquerque. So you didn't get some sort of a pushover right there. So Albuquerque leading the division here. And then the thing about it is, all these teams have a pretty good, strength of victory and everything else. Look at Albuquerque, way high at 562. And Fort Worth, 617, number 1. In the league right now, and they're at 5-4. So if they get in that whole log jam come toward the end of the season of all these tiebreakers, they'll have it above everybody else.
We talked about the East Division last season being one where every team could possibly have made the playoffs. Doesn't look like that's going to happen for the East this season, but for the South, not only could every team make the playoffs, I'm fairly certain there's a road where every team makes the playoffs with a winning record. It's just. It's impressive what's been going on in the South.
And I like it. I like the new teams that are in there too. Look, you got Washington at 4, Denver at 6.
Yep.
And then, you got Queen City at 10 right now, Bossier City at 8. So these are teams that have, missed the playoffs and hadn't been there in a long time or even really on a consistent basis. So it's really good to see. And then you got, like the former 5-time champs at 15 and 4 still got a shot. And who would have thought Minnesota now at 13, outside looking in.
Outside looking in. They've made the playoffs every season of their existence and currently on the outside looking in. Still a few weeks left to play, though. So let's look at this Week 12 slate now and see what we've got coming up tonight and tomorrow. And we got some games on Monday as well. So on a bye week this week, you've got Baltimore, Bossier City, Lexington, Nashville, and Washington. So a couple of your top teams on a bye, so which gives other teams an opportunity, maybe play a little bit of catch up. We'll start things off tonight. with Florida at Fort Worth. Gerald and I will be calling that one back on the air. We didn't even call a game last week. We were so distraught about the whole Friday and Saturday off thing.
So many tears in my eyes. All they saw, my eyes were all puffy last weekend.
Yeah.
I was like, I was like some sort of high school girl that a boyfriend broke up with him.
Man, that's just now it's getting weird. In the same time block as that Florida Fort Worth game coming up in just a little bit, we've got Denver at Charleston. So Denver obviously doing well in the playoff picture. Charleston at 2-7. Their season is all but over, but looking to maybe play some spoiler. Colin and Rick on that call. Another 2-7 team coming up later tonight. Los Angeles at Houston. Chris Curtis and Eddie Gage pairing up for that one. And Houston 6-3. Another one of those South teams that, when I say every team, is going to possibly make it with a winning record, what I mean is, like, I'm not even talking about 7-5. I'm talking they might all actually make 8-4, 9-3. I mean, it's kind of wild to think. But you also got Queen City at DC. That's going to be a great game. In fact, that's one that we dubbed as our game of the week. We'll break that one down in just a little bit. 6-4 at 4-5. Cameron Duty and Anthony Ellison on the call. That's our Saturday block tonight. And then coming up tomorrow, we've got 4 more games. We've got Carolina at Atlanta with Mike O'Neill and DJ Kilgannon. Now, it's an East Division battle. There's some good playoff implications there. That was another one that was, we were thinking about making our game of the week. Atlanta at home against, maybe a superior team. It's interesting. Definitely a lot to talk about on that one if we had more time, but we don't. So moving right along, Oklahoma City at Indianapolis. Somebody's got to win that one. Mark Lopez and Mickey Melillo will have the call. And then we've got Pittsburgh at Sin City later on that night at 9 p.m. with Eric Vincent and John Warren pairing up together. And then Chicago at Albuquerque. Albuquerque, just a powerhouse at home. Chicago having a rough season. Brett Solberg on play-by-play, and Rochelle Colston pairing up with him to talk about that one. We've got This Week in the SFL on Monday at 7:15 Eastern, followed by Vancouver at Mexico City. That one also we definitely could have talked about as the game of the week. Listen, I can tell you from watching some Sims throughout the week, looking at practice, going to be one hell of a ball game.
And it could be a preview of something we are going. Look, I'm going to say right now, you guys are in the playoffs, and so is Vancouver. It's not going to miss, but it might be something, a preview we might be able to see in the playoffs at some point.
We might see them again. It's going to be a fantastic game. Could come down to an overtime coin flip. I'll put it that way because a lot of the Sims have ended up going into overtime. It's been wild to watch. I'm absolutely terrified already, and I still have 2 more days to wait. We'll see if I make it. At 10:30 p.m., we've got following up that Vancouver-Mexico City game, we've got Arizona at Minnesota. Another great game, too. I mean, can Arizona keep things going? Is Minnesota going to keep falling off? Wild to see. Ethan Muslin and Alex West paired up for that call. So many great games that we could have possibly talked about, but we only can talk about one. So, 2. We'll also talk about the Florida-Fort Worth game, but let's talk about Queen City at DC because that is our selection for Game of the Week. It's a North Division battle. It's got major playoff implications for these teams. Currently, Queen City at number 2 in the division at 6-4. DC 4th in the division at 4-5. Queen City season's almost over. They've got this game, and then they've got one more heading back home to Buffalo to host the 2-7 Chicago Warriors, and then their regular season is over, I should say, not their whole season. Last season, they went 0-12. Their season was over pretty quick. This season, it looks like they're going to the playoffs. DC, they've got 2 games left here in the regular season, both of which are on the road. And they've got division rivals 7-2 Baltimore coming up, and then 0-8 Oklahoma City. So if Queen City wins both of those games, they've got a good shot at winning the division, but only if Baltimore loses out. So that's, they could win the division, but will they? I don't know. Baltimore losing out is not likely. Lexington, DC, and even Pittsburgh are still close behind them. So really, they need to keep winning to just even maintain that number 2 spot. For DC, the stakes are even higher. They can finish with 7 wins, which is effectively the bare minimum, if at all, to get into the playoffs. But they'll need to also take down the Corsairs here first, and then a really difficult game on the road in Baltimore before wrapping up their season against Oklahoma City. So records aside, DC has arguably played better football, in my opinion. They're scoring more points per game. They're allowing less per game, much less. In fact, Queen City has given up more points than any other team in the league. Can DC capitalize on that, or will the Corsairs slay the dragon?
Look, Queen City, they're winners of 3 straight, and the offense, and they have been playing great the last 3 weeks. quarterback Michael Brown, somebody you picked for your offensive player spotlight, has been playing great since his 4-interception performance in week 7. He has thrown for over 900 yards, 11 touchdowns, no interceptions over the last 3 games. I don't know if any quarterback throws for that many yards and that many touchdowns and has no picks. I can't ever remember that happening. 3 straight games
in a 3-game
no
stretch. No, I don't think so.
Look, and he leads the SFL in touchdowns, along with him being number 2 in passing yards. Wide receiver Ryan Davis is also having a great season.
Yeah.
He's leading the SFL with 9 touchdowns. He has 28 receptions, I believe, if I saw it correctly. And 9 of those are touchdowns. He's a big play-making type wide receiver.
Yeah.
Deep down the field, does nothing but really catch touchdowns. As you can see,
one out of every 3 catches goes in the end zone.
He's leading the league in touchdown reception. The run game also for this offense has been serviceable as well during the stretch, averaging 94 rush yards on the ground over the last 3 games. And they have been keeping opposing defenses off balance with what they're able to do, especially in the passing game, right? And they are making those splash plays on offense when they are needed.
Yep.
And as you can tell, 3 wins in a row, no interceptions. The run game is getting just under 100 yards a game. The receivers are catching out a huge clip and getting touchdowns. The offense
doing great.
The only knock for the offense, I think, is that the quality of opponents that they have played hasn't been those top-tier teams.
Right. So can they hold up?
But still, it's pretty impressive.
It definitely is, yeah. And I see Ryan Davis in the chat. He's excited that you gave him a little shout-out. He almost got my player of the week last week, but Michael Brown just, he got another receiver up over 100 yards, and then another one was close to it. So it's hard to not talk about the QB in those regards, even if you make fun of me every time I pick a quarterback. We'll see who I picked later on tonight. So defensively, I already talked about how they have allowed more points than any other team. That's got to stop. They got to do something on defense.
And that's it. Look, and they are at or near the bottom in 3 of the 5 defensive, team defensive rankings. Look, but they have gotten stops lately when it's needed, right? They're giving up a lot of yards, they're giving up a lot of points, but sometimes they get those stops right when they need it, right? It was a game a few weeks ago. They had to go into overtime. I had picked them to win that game. They had to force overtime, score late, got to stop when they needed an overtime. And was able to, get the ball close there, kick a field goal, win the game, and everything was over. Look, they also have the league's top pass rusher in there. And P. Fudor, she is leading the SFL in sacks with 9 from her defensive end position. Look, and another bright spot on this defense as well is Alex Marshall, who is top 10 in the SFL in tackles and interceptions, both which lead the team. Like I said, the only concern that I have with this defense, they only have 1 win versus a team who currently has a winning record, and that is Albuquerque.
Right.
3rd worst strength of victory in the SFL. That's my concern. So can they have beat an elite team, but can they beat the elite teams as we start making the playoff push?
Right. And, DC's not really considered one of those elite teams, but like I said in my intro, I think they have played better football, so they can give Queen City a run for their money. That being said, they're kind of the opposite of what Queen City's had as of late. They are actually losers of 3 straight, and they've got a lot of emotional things going on right now, too. I'm sure everybody's heard at this point what their wide receiver, former teammate of yours, B. Robo, tragically passing away a little over a week ago now. So that's weighing on their hearts and their minds as well as they head into this game, home in DC. Luck has not been on their side on the field lately. Like we said, losers of 3 straight. Talk about that, what they're doing.
And that's the thing. And they, but they have played some of the SFL's, best over the last 3 games, right? Their strength of defeat is 9th. Their offensive team to, statistics, or kind of misleading in my opinion.
Yeah.
Right. They are top 7 in every offensive category except 1, which is 11th, and that's in passing yards. So why are they why are they 4 and 5? If I think that it could be misleading, it's the turnovers, right? They rank 21st in turnovers. It's 5th worst in the SFL, right? So when you have that stuff going on, you got to be able to get yourselves in a better position to win. And when you like this, and turn the ball over, kind of like that, it puts you in a bad spot offensively,
right?
So and you kind of struggle. So Shabazz Synergy, he accounts for 16 of the team's 23 turnovers. 12 interceptions and 4 fumbles he had made. Ball security has been an issue for him. He is number 2 in pass touchdowns, and with 16, on the season of those turnovers, or by him solely, has cost him though in key drives for this team.
Yeah, it's hard to win.
And they had the number 6 rushing attack. I feel like they need to probably lean on that a little bit more with Kevin Say, Sam Harrison, and Chuck Steller, right, to take the load off of synergy to be able to get a little bit more improvement from the offensive side.
Yeah, they definitely do. And much like the offense, the defense has been bad in the turnover department as well.
Yeah, and it's almost as equally bad. They sit at, the bottom third of the league in that category and allowing opponents to score, 25 points a game, which is, has them, that's 1 point more than what their offense scores. So if you're allowing more points than you're scoring, right? I mean, that's why, you can look at it and see, hey, they're 4 and 5. They're playing top tier talent, you know what I mean? And they're kind of keeping in, But like I said, if the math is mathing, that's not a winning formula.
Right.
So they just need to tighten it up on defense across the board. Look, not all bad, right? Because they got Nick Fargos playing at an all-star caliber level. He's third in the SFL and TFLs.
Yeah.
And this team as a whole is number 7 in sacks as well, so they can rush the quarterback. They're just going to have to kind of get themselves, back on track.
Yeah, well, that's our game of the week. We're looking forward to that one. That one's going to be later on tonight, 9:15 p.m. tonight. Cameron Duty, Anthony Ellison on the call. You don't want to miss that one. It's sure to be a great game. Obviously an emotional game, but there's a lot on the line for both of these teams. DC really needs this win to keep their season going. Currently with a losing record at 4-5, they at least want to get back to 500 tonight and try to keep things going. Queen City obviously looking for that 7th win. If they get that 7th win, they're almost sure to get into the playoffs, which has been long overdue for the Corsairs. So looking to see if that happens for them. So all right, let's get into spotlighting some players. We've got some offensive player spotlight and a defensive player spotlight. And much to, I don't know, I guess your happiness. I don't, see, you're in my head when I'm picking my players. I'm like, ooh, look at this guy. Oh, it's a QB. I probably should avoid
You're always
them.
picking quarterbacks.
I'm not always picking. I'm going to pull up the stats. Not right now because I'm standing here, but I'm going to pull up the stats for the next show. And we're going to see. We'll do a little recap on who's been highlighted so far. It's not always quarterbacks. In any case, this week.
The same guy twice.
Well, just because he played great twice. He needed to be Silence. This is my time. I'm talking now. Offensive player spotlight this week. We've got Bossier City Steamer, wide receiver, Vin Kalia. Go ahead and roll that footage. He had 9 receptions, 213 yards, 2 touchdowns. He averaged 24 yards per reception, Gerald. That's practically 2.5 first downs per reception, if that was such a thing, along of 74 yards. Absolutely fantastic play. You'll see a whole series of highlights that Ron Haynes put together for us. With a variety of different things that he does. So watch these plays. He's getting these 10-yard chunks, 16-yard chunks. He's catching balls in traffic. You talk about, the struggles that Synergy has had. Well, how about Johnny Pickler and his reliance on a player like Vin Kalia, who is able to get himself open, and even when he's not open, he's able to climb the ladder like you saw right there, jump up, get the ball over a defender's head. But in traffic, there's one play in particular I can't wait for you to see. There's an example of one where he was in traffic. But you've heard of a certain linebacker named Matthew Alvarado, yes?
Yes.
All right. Well, watch this. Bam! Body slams. Body slams Khalil. Watch this. He just picks him up. Boom! That's your Retroid Nice Hands catch of the game. Why? Because he just gets like wrestling move, body slammed into the ground by Matthew Alvarado and holds on to it. At halftime, 5 receptions, 82 yards. A respectable day for any receiver, but that's not even half of the yards he ended up getting. Here he goes breaking away with this one. 74 yards to the house. He actually got, if you saw where the line of scrimmage was, that was at the 25-yard line. Officially a 74-yarder, but that was 75 yards. Yeah, just able to break away and run with it. He had a few more that were really good too. I think this is actually the one here where, look at him break away. Almost gets an 82-yarder, just gets caught from behind. Probably getting a little tired at this point in the game because I mean, he's just sprinting up and down the field. That one was 39 yards. He had a 14-yarder after that, and then finally wrapped things up with a short one, but a nice one, getting 3 yards into the end zone for the touchdown. You know, he's 11 seasons in, right? He's made 5 All-Star appearances. That's basically every other season he's getting himself into the All-Star game, and including last season. Here's his 3-yard touchdown. He's got nearly 750 receptions on his career. He's got a 15.3 yard average per reception on 750 receptions, over 11,000 yards. It's 11,423 to be exact, and 70 touchdowns. Vin Kelly, just fantastic game. He's having a fantastic season. Sure to be another all-star player this season.
Look, and they needed him last week in that moment, right? So to be able to come up big like that, Johnny Pilger hitting him so many times like he did. Look, and those are the plays. Once you got the talent together, it seems like they may have figured something out. Bossier City, especially last week against a good team like Minnesota. Yeah. So congratulations to Vin Kelly.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Bossier City definitely did a lot of nice things offensively and maybe defensively.
Yeah, so my defensive player spotlight. Look, this is the type of play you get from one particular team when you're talking about grinding their bones up and everything else.
You made threats.
I said if they were going to lose, they was going to be dead to me. But they not. They won. And you know what they did? You picked a guy on offense. I picked a guy on defense. Bossier City linebacker number 45, Bogey Barr gets it tonight for me. He's got 10 tackles, 1 interception, 2 pass defense, and a forced fumble as well, right? So, and you're going to see as this starts right here, it's a textbook read and react type situation right here from a veteran linebacker. You know what he does? Sees it, goes in it, and plugs the gap right up. And this play coming up right here is what we're going to see. This is going to be a sequence that is extremely important to this drive. First and goal, what's he do? He reads, he reacts, and takes the running back down before he's able to get himself inside the end zone. And what we're going to do, we got second and goal right here. And this is how he has outside responsibility. What's he do? Cuts back in, and as the running back jumps in to try to get it, he sacrifices his body and bam, knocks him down right there. And guess what? Stops them from getting in right there. They do not score a touchdown or drive that set up for a field goal. And right here again, right? Read and reacts. And guess what he did? He does not make the tackle, but guess what? He's an impact and allows his teammates to come in and make the TFL. Right here, kind of gets right up in the middle, kind of fakes a blitz. What he does, falls right along the outside, and we'll get a second look at this right here. Look how he just strafes across the field. Bam! Knocks him right out, able to hit him right at line of scrimmage. Running back didn't see it coming. The ball falls out and everything else. What's he do? He's also versatile. What he does, drops back in coverage. He starts trailing the moose as he's coming off the line, gets that left hand up to deflect the pass.
Nice.
And what we're going to do, here we go again. Bogey Barr in coverage again. Ooh. He used the left hand last time. This time he uses that right hand.
He can catch with that one
and get the INT. Sits right in the zone, reads the quarterback eyes, as you can see right here. Just sits in the zone, makes a play on the ball, and makes the play. Here's another one right here. Right, stays disciplined, knows his responsibility, keeps to his assignment, and makes the play. Right, and we're going to end it off right here. Another really good coverage by him right here while playing out in coverage. Bogey Barr is a 7-season vet, and on this season right here, he has 68 tackles, nice. 8 TFLs, 1 sack, and 3 interceptions this season. So he's never made an all-star game, but if he keeps playing at this type of level this season, he may be looking at his very first all-star appearance if he keeps up this type of level of play going this season. So congratulations to Bossier City on both sides, offense and defense, for playing a great game last week.
Vin Kelly, Bogey Barr, congratulations to both of them. But Bossier City as a whole, I mean, they had both the offensive and defensive player spotlight. They won the game, and, I mean, they got a winning record. They're still right up there in the South. They've had some up-and-down games this season, but they're still in it. They're still in it just as much as any other team in the South. I can't wait to see how things play out.
Six-win teams. 4 6-win teams already in the division.
Yeah.
And you have Fort Worth at 5-4, just in last place at 5-4. A quality team like Fort Worth at 5-4. So it's crazy.
Well, this is where we usually get into the streets are talking community vote, but the streets are quiet tonight, Gerald.
Streets ain't talking.
The streets ain't talking. I haven't gotten the results of the voting. So everybody send nasty grams to Brett Solberg. That's Brett@solberg.com. I don't know what his email is. But you all know how to find him on Discord. I'm sure he'll post the results. But you know what? Since we have a little bit of extra time, why not take a moment to just give Ron Haynes a special shout out? You know, we mentioned him at the beginning of the show. We talk about him all the time, quite frankly, but I can never talk about Ron Haynes too much. So 1 minute talking about Ron Haynes. When we started this this segment, you know, for the show this season, the plan was just to basically talk about players, and you all would just have to stare at our ugly faces like you do for the whole show anyway. We're pretty. I'm just kidding. And but then I approached Ron and said, "Hey, would you mind doing some videos for us? Would that be something you'd be willing and able to do?" And without any hesitation, just jumped right in and said, "Yes, absolutely." And you know, I thought maybe he would just kind of piece together a couple video clips for us. I didn't want him to go too crazy, but you know, the extra work that he does, highlighting the players so you know who you're looking at when we're talking about these highlights. Ron Haynes, you are a just a legendary guy. We appreciate you. This is all volunteer work that everybody does here at the SFL, and you know, for him to step up and do extra stuff just because we asked him to, love that guy.
And not only what the extra community sees and what he puts in the work on the videos, but he also logs these plays and timestamps them and lets us know and tells a little bit of a story at the play flow. So, look, if we're just, just say we would just randomly throw something at the wall, we can really look at those notes and be like, all right, look, this is the story that this tells and how he put the actual video together. So, phenomenal work by Ron Haynes each and every week and what he supplies with us, because we would not be, at least in this segment, would not be near as good as it would without him. Thanks, Ron.
Appreciate you, Ron. All right, let's get into our breakdown of the game coming up next. We got about 18 minutes till kickoff of Florida at Fort Worth. And hang on just 1 second, because Gerald, we in Texas tonight, baby. We in Fort Worth. You know, I just visited, Fort Worth.
You're in the stock. You were at the stockyards.
At the stockyards. I forgot my hat, and I felt so sad because, I'm walking around and everybody else had a nice hat, and I'm like, man, I got a hat like that back home. So anyway, I'm going to wear it tonight because we're at Fort Worth, baby. All right, so this is a relatively rare meeting between Florida and Fort Worth, which is weird because between these two teams, they've got 27 combined seasons in the league, and these teams have only met 4 times in 27 seasons. They've each won a pair of those games in those 4 meetings. This 5th meeting means a lot for both of these teams. Fort Worth, they're currently at the bottom of the South, but we've talked about the South a little bit already. Being the bottom of the South means you're still in the playoffs.
Right.
And they actually still have a path to win the division through these final 4 weeks. They could still go from 5th to 1st.
It's insane.
Yeah, right? I know. I had to double and triple check that. I'm like, I don't want to say that and lie. They have a path to win the South, but they do effectively need to win out, and they need to get some help from division rivals by losing some games. So it's a tall task, but the path is still there. And listen, Fort Worth is not a bad team. They've just quite literally had the most difficult strength of schedule out of any team so far in the SFL. Number 1 strength of schedule. Number 1 strength of victory, too, by the way. Who have they beaten? Mexico City. They've also beaten Houston, who's at 6-3. They've beaten Denver, who's at 6-3. They just beat Washington to make them have a 7-2 record. Every team that they've played so far, except for 2, has had a winning record now at this point in the season. So they're just playing nothing but winners, and they've beat 5 of them. So, they're going to have to keep on winning, though. Florida, they were 4-1 through the first 5 weeks. 4-1 on their way to being like Florida, like they always are Florida, right? 0-3 since. Now a couple games back behind Carolina in the East Division, who also has the head-to-head win over Florida. Winning the division is looking less and less likely for the Storm, which is a rare thing to say at any point in any season. Winning out will likely be their best path for them as well. So major implications on the line. Both of these teams can't win out. One of them is going to lose tonight in about an hour and 45 minutes. Even though Florida is higher in the standings than Fort Worth is in their division, Fort Worth is higher in the standings in the league. So, it just depends on how you look at things. They do score more points offensively and allow less points defensively than the Storm do. The Toros, I should say, score more and allow less than the Storm. So it's a really tough task ahead for Florida. What do these teams got to do? Let's start with Florida.
Look, and Florida, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say it loud. Oh, how the mighty have fallen, and pun intended, emphasis on the mighty. The 5-time champs are loser of 3 straight, where they have been outscored 81-34. and just frankly have not looked good at all. And we both know, hey, look, they had their Hall of Fame quarterback in. They had a Hall of Fame quarterback deactivated. It didn't matter who was in there. They still can't win games. So, look, and their last win was a shutout against Nashville. But let's be honest, who hasn't beaten Nashville this season? They have had low production on both sides of the ball, and it's been a steady decline since season 22. The offense has had an 11-point reduction per game since their season 22 championship season, and their defense has allowed 8 more points per game from last season. Look, they are scoring less points than they allow. They're the bottom half of SFL in offensive categories, and they mirror that output on the defensive side as well. I believe the reason why in the severe reduction on offense and defense is the takeaways.
Yep.
They are third worst in takeaways in the SFL, when historically, on average, over the last 5 seasons, they rank 6th on average the last 5 seasons, not including this one.
Mm-hmm.
So in takeaways, so if you look at that, hey, that's where it's going, right? They're not used to they're used to taking that ball away. Now they're not. With the offense struggling in all aspects, they need their turnovers, and it's just not happening from a defensive side. They need to figure out what they can do to figure this out, either get the offense going, because they have Hall of Fame quarterback Ron Cochran. They have a former MVP running back in Bullet Beletsky. And the receivers they got, we know, I call them the ultimate X factor, and it's, Art Vandelay. Like, what's going on there? But they need to fix these issues fast in the future if they even have a chance of making it. Look, they have the talent, and they have the coaching pedigree to do so, but can they?
Yeah, it's just interesting to see what's happened to them over these past couple of seasons and just where they are now compared to where they were in the past. Players like Big Sexy, Alex Dominguez leaving the team, the things like that start to shake things up both on the field and maybe even in the office. You lose a player like that. It's just a staple with the franchise for so long. It just kind of throws things off. But man, I really dig this head. Did you know I was actually, I almost was a Texan? Just growing up, when I was, it was either when I was a infant or before I was even born. My parents almost moved to Texas, so it was like before I had really any kind of self-awareness. I would have grown up a fan of Buc-ee's. Bleh. Anyway, let's talk about Fort Worth. The Toros, toughest schedule of the season so far, like I said.
Yeah, look, and toughest schedule this season, as you mentioned, the best strength of victory. Mm-hmm. Look, and they have beaten 6+ win teams, as you mentioned: Mexico City, Houston, Denver, Washington. Look, and like I said last week, they are doing it, but they play up to the talent, or they play down to their opponent as well in some cases. But as far as the top tier talent in the league, they have been up for the challenge this season, just across the teams that we just named earlier, who they beat. Look, and those mid-tier teams, is where they kind of struggle. And tonight, what are they facing? I think one of those opponents that is a mid-tier type team and kind of struggling. The Toros offense is top 9 in points a game. It's important. And as we know, right, some of those points can be credited to their defense. They're 9th in points, but we can't give them all those points. 5 touchdowns from the defensive side have been scored. Leads the SFL. Look, and the offense ranks 4th in third down efficiency. The offense does by converting nearly 60% on third down,
which is huge.
But the defense is 3rd worst in third down efficiency, allowing over 60%
Maybe
conversion.
Even that up just a little bit.
So I'm like, look, I mean, it's one extreme or the next. Yeah. So look, and what has kept them in the positive win column is that they can protect the ball on offense. Only 8 turnovers this season. Collectively, everybody, quarterback, running back, that's a league best right there. And guess what? When this team plays a complete game, and we've seen it last week, they played a complete game, solid.
Wasn't
clean,
a high-scoring game, but it was a good
clean.
Game.
The defense held up and everything else. And guess what? When they look amazing, but when it hasn't, the consistency for them to continue to win, it gets a little bit shaky, right? We don't want those. I know they don't. They don't want those type of performances because they could be on the outside looking in. Look, and for this game tonight, both teams are in a do-or-die type situation. Yes. In my opinion, a loss, I believe, cripples both these teams' playoff chances. And I do think whoever loses tonight will not make the playoffs.
Wow. Well, there's your hot take of the show. So we'll see what happens. both of these teams have been kind of on a similar sort of path. They play some games great, then they play other games, and it's like, wow, who is this team? So I knew mentioning Buc-ee's would rile up the chat a little bit, and it did, and that's just fun. Thumb asking, how do you hate on Buc-ee's? Listen, I'm not hating on Buc-ee's. It's just Fort Worth. As a whole,
because they love their Buc-ee's. That's why.
Yeah, they love their Buc-ee's. So, if I'm not throwing shade at Fort Worth, am I really honoring the Aztecs at all?
No.
Louise, Steven, I love you both. All right, let's get into our picks. Gerald, you had a perfect week. You went 8 for 8 last week. Credit to you, sir. I don't think either of us, have ever gone undefeated.
I don't even think that was going to happen, but somehow it happened.
It happened. Yeah, I went 6 and 8, so I did okay, but I was only ahead of you by two games, and now you just picked up 2 games. So I'm 64 and 38. You're 64 and 38. We've picked 102 games so far. We've got 44 picks left to go. I hope it's not a tie at the end of the season. Somebody's got to win. There's got to be a winner and a loser. So, but we'll see what happens. And listen, when you look at some of these picks, that we've been making, and even ones I think we're going to make tonight, I think we're going to be picking a lot of the same teams again. So we've got to get some disparity in here. But let's see what happens as we roll through the picks tonight. First up, Denver at Charleston. Who do you got?
And I think this game's going to be a lot tougher than what some people think. I actually went back and forth on this one, and a lot of people think, oh, man, you're crazy. But I think Charleston is a team that they don't play like a 2-7 team. They can play really good. They're a solid squad, and they play, and they play really good at home. But the way Denver has seemingly figured it out, I just cannot go against what they're doing right now. Right. I like what they're doing. Sometimes it's not pretty, but they do it in just this calm way, I guess, and they just find a way to win. I got to take Denver.
I'm going to take Denver as well, even though they're on the road. Charleston just not it this season, and Denver, quite frankly, looking like they did when they were last in the championship back in season 16. Los Angeles at Houston.
Oh, I love Rochelle, and I made time for my friend Damon Simeon. Gave me a call the other night, had a really good conversation, talked about all kinds of things, trying to drag me out of retirement. I don't know. He's a pretty convincing man, I tell you that. So, look, I got to go to Houston here. Why? L.A. doesn't have it. My boy Blake be crazy. Love you, boy. Damon Simeon, the things they're doing good. Go Houston.
Gross. But anyway, I'm also going to pick Houston. It was tough to say. But I'll pick Houston, division rivals. Against Los Angeles, and they're playing in Houston. They've just got the better matchup there. Queen City at DC, our game of the week. Who do you got?
This is another one I went back and forth on. Like, I'm like, man, I think DC is a lot better than what they played. They played really good teams,
and they're home.
And Queen City does a lot of things in terms of they're winning, but it's not up against the quality opponents that you would actually think, right? That they have beaten, right? They're not of high quality opponents. DC's at home. Everything was telling me pick DC. But man, that Buffalo squad, they got something special this season.
They do.
And I think they're going into DC. They're going to slay the dragon, and they're going to come out on top.
Well, when we were breaking down that game at the end of my segment, that was the question I asked. Will Queen City be able to slay that dragon? I think they do. I think they do take down DC against them in their own house. Queen City, I think, gets the win. They get that 7th win. Damon Simeon says I'm great in that hat. Now I love Damon Simeon too. Man, I'm just saying, they're my division rivals. It's like, but he's just such a nice guy.
He's amazing.
He is amazing. Carolina at Atlanta.
All right, so the East leading Carolina Skyhawks, we have a love-hate relationship. They're going to get some love from me this week, which means they're probably going to let me down. But I'm taking that chance. Ooh. Why? Because I just don't think Atlanta has it. As I say, they're all playing in Atlanta. But they're going to go in there with their rage spray, and they're going to just spray that whole place and be like, walk out wearing their only good bugs, the dead bug T-shirts. I got some in stock. If you need it, I got it. You need it, I got it.
The spread shop is still open.
So they're going to go in there, and I think they're going to take down the Swarm.
Still trying to make money, just riding the coattails of the Revs.
We dominated Atlanta. They're rivals and always will be.
Yeah, you know who's not dominating Atlanta? It's going to be Carolina. Atlanta's going to get the win at home. They're still in the hunt here, and I think that this is the week that they start to get things turned around. Atlanta Give me Atlanta in that one. Oklahoma City at Indianapolis. Obviously, OKC with no wins. Indy, if I remember right, only 2 or 3 on this. I think it was 3.
Yeah.
So who do you got with Oklahoma City?
There's a game that OKC will win, it's going to be this one. I said that earlier in the season when they were playing Chicago. But guess what? OKC, right here. Here's your opportunity to take down a team. But I don't think you're going to do it. I think Indianapolis will build. They just lack the proper personnel in OKC right now.
Yeah.
Right? They're just young. They're still developing. But I think Indy takes it out solely based on experience and the type of players that they have.
Yeah, I said way early on that I would probably not pick Oklahoma City to win a game this season, and I am going to stick by that. I think Indianapolis gets the win. They're at home. They've got the stronger roster right now. I am interested to see OKC in season 25. Pittsburgh at Sin City.
Louisiana North. Going to Vegas, playing samurais because there's so many samurais running around in the desert apparently. So look, and this is the thing. So I don't think Pittsburgh has the staff and they have the players. They just haven't had that mesh well together. Sin City can dominate. We've seen it.
Yeah.
We've seen it in past season, right, when we're out in Canada. They can dominate. I don't know if they'll dominate, but they will win. They just know how to put it together at home. Sin City wins it.
Have you been to the Las Vegas Strip before?
I've not.
I see. Okay, so go to the Las Vegas Strip. A samurai would be the least weird thing that you'd see. Just to let you know. Give me Sin City in this one. They're at home. I think that they're just a stronger team. I think Sin City gets the win over Pittsburgh. Chicago at Albuquerque. David and Goliath here. And by the way, Goliath is at home.
Yeah, and they don't lose at home. It's easy for me. They're going to crush Chicago. That's just me. I think that Chicago just doesn't have it. They just a mess right now and trying to figure things out. Albuquerque doesn't lose at home, and they are an extremely good squad, Albuquerque.
Late in the season, in season 23, Chicago was facing Minnesota. I needed Chicago to get that win to just give me just a little bit of edge in the playoff seeding over Minnesota, and Chicago came through for me and got that surprising upset win. I need you to do it again. I got to get up ahead of Albuquerque. If they lose a game, remember way back when Cam was making fun of the Aztecs saying, oh, Mexico City, bottom of the standings. And I said, let's see what happens after week 12.
Week 12.
We're in week 12. Mexico City's currently in second place behind Albuquerque. If Chicago beats them and Mexico City wins this weekend, guess who's number 1 after week 12? That's right. I don't know why I just did that. But that being said, I don't think it's going to happen. I think Albuquerque's going to get the win. They're just too strong at home. Type attack, I love you, brother. But I just don't think you guys have what it takes to get it done against Albuquerque this week. But I will be rooting for you. Vancouver at Mexico City. Monday Night Spectacular.
This was a tough one right here for me. Why? Because Vancouver's number 1 in like almost every single thing you can imagine. They're like, my opinion, they're like the perfect team right now.
Yeah.
But they're playing Mexico City, and I know what Mexico City is like at home, and I know when they up to the challenge of playing a team that somebody says, it's a tough challenge, they turn the switch on and they're able to win. I'm taking Mexico City. I'm
going to take Mexico City because I own the joint. But other than that, listen, it's going to be a toss-up game. It really is. Vancouver's just a fantastic team. They might be in Mexico City. I don't think they care that they're on the road. I don't think it matters that they're on the road. We might win, we might lose, but we're going to give it one hell of an effort. And I, of course, am going to pick Mexico City. Our final game of the evening to pick Arizona at Minnesota.
I am going with those desert bugs in Arizona.
After all the shade you've thrown Eddie Gage, you're picking his team on. Okay.
He's got confidence.
Please explain.
Look, he ain't on the field to get a pick six. He can't ruin the win, right? He might do it from the sidelines, but I believe in him. And what they're going to do, they're going to put it together. They're going to go in Minnesota. Minnesota's lost 2 straight at home. 2 straight at home.
At home.
3rd straight home game. I think Arizona's going to go in there and give them their 3rd straight because why? I think Minnesota's questioning their ability to be able to win again. And Arizona beats them while they're down.
Yeah, they very well may, but I don't know. And listen, this is the last time I'm going to pick Minnesota if they lose because, I keep thinking that, and I think I've said every time, this is the week they turn it around. I've been wrong a couple times now saying this is the week they turn. This is the last time I'm saying it, Minnesota. This is the week they turn it around. I'm going to pick Minnesota, but if they lose, I'm not going to grind their bones like you, psychopath, but I won't pick them again. I can guarantee you that.
That's literally what he's saying.
Anyway, that's all the time we've got for the show. We've got a great game. Florida at Fort Worth coming up next. A whole slate of games tonight, tomorrow, and Monday. It's going to be a great weekend of SFL football. We'll see you on the field here in Fort Worth, Texas. Don't go anywhere. Game starts in just a couple minutes.